Let's go live to Canberra now. Labor MP Peter Khalil joins us now. Thanks so much for your time. How worried should people be about the coronavirus? What are you telling your constituents?
Well, I'd pass on the very good advice from our medical authorities. The chief medical officer's given briefings, and we've seen that over the past couple of weeks. And the basics, Laura, you know, good hygiene, good personal hygiene, making sure that you wash your hands all the time. And if there are symptoms, if you're feeling sick, making sure you get to a healthcare facility so that you could be checked and looked after. And following all of those rules. And I think it's funny you should say that, because I was thinking that there is a real need for a kit of information that we could pass on, I think, more generally to the public at the local level, and that's something I'll be discussing internally here. Okay,
well, a kit perhaps is needed, an information kit to inform people, because authorities are telling everyone not to panic, but the supermarket shelves tell us they are.
Yeah, no, I saw that. I saw the pictures of some of the empty shelves with the toilet paper, and I was heartened to see, I think it might have been on Sky, that there was a report that local toilet paper manufacturing is being ramped up. I didn't even know that we still did that, so that's good news. I think the other general message for the public is not to panic, because once you do that, that creates a whole other problem, right? And so people should go about their daily business. If they go shopping, yeah, look, a little bit of an increase on things that you need to have. Make sure you've got all the medicines and different things like that, the pasta and the rice, but don't go overboard. And you know, I saw Costco, I think, was the one where people just loaded up and just bought out everything off the shelves. That's not going to help.
Nope, it's certainly not. Costco you have to buy in bulk anyway, so perhaps that's part of the reason.
That's true.
But if yesterday's rate cut doesn't work, what does the economy then need for a shot in the arm, in your view?
Well, it's interesting, Laura, you know, I've said this before, that this government has lent in heavily and relied on monetary policy, on the Reserve Bank, the shortening rope of monetary policy and rate cuts to get it out of trouble. Because the fact is that wages have been stagnant under this government. There's been underemployment. There's been a lack of investment. You know, debt and household debt and public debt have increased under this government. And this all happened. All of this happened before the coronavirus and the bushfires.
So what would Labor do at this point? What would Labor do at this point?
We have given them so many time and opportunities to say, why don't you look at raising Newstart? Why don't you look at a whole range of issues that will stimulate the economy, like passing on the second phase of tax cuts? I mean, there's a whole range of things that Jim Chalmers and we have been banging on about to this government around fiscal stimulus.
Yeah, you have been banging on about that for quite some time, in fact, last year, but the economic environment has changed significantly. So would Labor change its course of action? I mean, some economists, Peter Switzer was just on the program calling for a special stimulus package, you know, that would rival that of the bushfire package, which is about $2 billion. Is that about right?
Well, you went to the $2 billion bushfire package, which apparently hasn't even been set up by the government, and only a handful of farmers have actually received a number of loans. And so Scott Morrison's announcing a $2 billion package that doesn't quite exist yet and hasn't been created. They need to do the work on that. And with respect to their fiscal package, which they haven't provided any details yet, we'll have a look at that. There needs to be a stimulus there, obviously, given the impacts of the coronavirus on the economy. The point I was making was that they can't fall back on the coronavirus and say, oh, look, we didn't expect this, no one expected it. No, under their watch, the economy was struggling. Clearly, the statistics tell us that.
Well, so what do you say then with the RBA mentioning coronavirus 8 times in its statement yesterday? I mean, they do have some leg to stand on when blaming the coronavirus, wouldn't you agree?
No, I'm not denying that the coronavirus is and will have an impact on the economy. What I'm saying is that the underlying economic, foundations were already brittle under this government's watch prior to the coronavirus hitting, prior to the bushfires. And that's something that the government has ignored. They kept leaning on the Reserve Bank to continue with monetary policy or interest rate cuts and refused to make any stimulus because Josh Frydenberg wanted to hold on to his surplus.
China is dealing with the coronavirus outbreak, and while it is doing that, perhaps a bigger issue is being swept under the carpet, a human rights one, and this comes to the slave labour of Chinese Uyghurs. Australia can do something about this. What should it be?
Well, it's a good question, Laura. Some of the images that we've seen are shocking. The ASPI did a report on this, which has exposed practices that are horrific. We're talking about forced labour, modern slavery. The Uyghurs, which is a Muslim ethnic minority from Western China, there are reports that tens of thousands of Uyghurs have been forcibly removed to factories around the country to work in those factories. And look, what can Australia do? Well, this Parliament passed the Modern Slavery Act back in 2018. We provided bipartisan support for that. In that act, there are requirements for companies, Australian companies, to report on their supply chains if there are those practices within their supply chains. I'd like to see that strengthened, frankly, because this reporting is voluntary. It's not actually something that's enforced. But we are seeing brands that are benefiting from this forced labour, this modern slavery, if you like, right through our economy. And people would be shocked to know that, whether it's their Nike shoes or their Apple phone or whatever it might be, parts of it are being made by people who are effectively slaves.
Just finally, you've accused the Treasurer of mocking the Hindu community. Has Parliament really become a joke-free zone?
No, there's always a place for humour, Laura, with respect to, speeches made in Parliament. That's been a part of our tradition. The point is this. Josh Frydenberg thinks it's okay to mock a particular faith, the Hindu faith.
Who's
Yet
been offended,
he has gone out there in the past... Well, hold on. He's gone out there in the past and talked about the insidious nature of stereotyping a particular faith, particularly his own Jewish faith. Now, would he go out there and mock a rabbi or his robes or an imam? No, but he thought it was okay to do it to the Hindu faith. There have been many Hindu Australians who have been very offended by this because he's basically used...
Who exactly? Because we've seen a number of statements from the Indian and the Hindu community.
Yeah, there's been a number of statements from the Hindu community that have said that this has offended them. There are some who've said that there's no offence. Obviously, the community is quite large, but there are many who have been offended by this. I'll say this about this. We in Parliament should lead by example. We shouldn't be mocking any particular faith or person of background to make our jokes. Get your joke material right, Josh, is what I'd say to him. And when he's practising in front of the mirror his jokes, he doesn't have to have a crack at a particular faith or race or ethnicity. He himself has said that kind of stereotyping has caused anti-Semitism in the past, and he should know better.
There's definitely an issue with communication at the moment, but now he's back.
Sorry, Peter, we just lost you there, but we are going to have to leave it there this morning. This is not a conspiracy. We weren't trying to silence you, but we did have a few audio issues. We will see you soon.
And coming up later this morning, we will bring you the latest GDP figures and analysis as the numbers drop. So that'll be at 11:30 Eastern Daylight Time, right here on Sky News. Just best to stay on the channel so you don't miss anything.